welcome to this week's CEO Chats, CancerVAX. My name is Ryan Davies. Really excited to have a good friend, Todd Kinard, with us today to talk a little bit about how intellectual property and the biotechnology world go together. So Todd, real quickly, you've got an impressive background. You have an undergraduate degree in microbiology, a master's degree in experimental pathology, and then all of a sudden you went to law school, which is cool, which is interesting, but and you became a patent lawyer. So I'm interested a little bit about that decision, and perhaps you can give us just a quick rundown of your career, and more specifically, how you've been able to combine your science and your legal backgrounds and how that's worked for you.
Yeah, so initially my thought was looking to go into the medical field, and so my graduate was in microbiology with a heavy dose of microbiology, and then I started at the University of Utah's PhD program in chemical biology, but left with my master's in experimental pathology, and took a job at Myriad Genetics, doing research for diagnostics for different types of cancers. It was really, I hadn't really thought about law school until then, and I ended up becoming really good friends with in-house counsel, and he suggested I might try law school. And so kind of on a whim, I went to law school, and it turned out to be a really good decision for me. I was trained as a patent attorney in a local firm here in Salt Lake City, doing all kinds of IP, mostly patent prep and prosecution. Yeah. And then ended up getting recruited by a local family office to go into investments, where I got some unique experience, not only in the biotech field, but in other industries as well.
Thanks, Todd. When people hear IP, intellectual property, usually they think of copyrights and trademarks. A lot of them do, but there's so much more to that. And the world that you live in is more patents and trade secrets. But how would you describe the intellectual property landscape as a whole?
Intellectual property, they all have their copyrights, trademarks, patents, trade secrets. They all have their pros and cons of protecting different types of ideas and ingenuity. Patents are good. They give you 20 years exclusivity of being able to keep others from making, selling, manufacturing, or importing a product. Trade secrets can last indefinitely, but they're a little bit tougher to maintain. I mean, some of the more famous ones are like Coca-Cola's recipe for its drinks, but patents are usually the way to go, especially in the pharmaceutical world. I mean, there's requirements for best mode that you actually have to disclose your best mode of actually producing a product. And in the pharma industry, you're usually, if it's small molecule or even a biologic, once you've actually got those out there in the public domain. In the pharmaceutical world, when you get a small molecule or biologics out there, they can typically be reverse engineered fairly easily.
Got it. That's interesting. And so a patent life lasts for 20 years once it's issued or once it's filed?
Once it's filed, it's from its priority date.
Its priority date, yeah. And then once you have a patent, you don't want to stop there, do you? You want to start doing. There's a very strategic game, if you will, which and I've heard you describe it in the past as building a fence around your primary patents, right? So you want to continue to file other patents that'll protect some of your core patents. Is that right?
That's correct. There's different ways to get patent extensions in the pharma world. I mean, there are like market exclusivities and data exclusivities. Different therapeutic areas have, extensions that they provide, just because, like with orphan drugs and antibiotics, and there's other types of extensions that are provided to in the pharma industry. There's also patent strategies. I mean, the term that's usually used is called evergreening. And so once you got your molecule, a lot of pharma companies will try to extend their patent life by coming up with new uses, reformulations,
Interesting.
that type of
Yeah.
stuff. So you can do follow-on patents with later priority dates that extend your patent life down the road.
Very cool. Well, it sounds like a complex game.
It's always fun.
Yeah. So, Todd, you've been working in the biotech industry for 9+ years. What are some of the most exciting things? What are some of the things you've enjoyed most about being a patent attorney, but also being, deep into the biotech industry?
Yeah, I think the thing I like the most about it is that you're developing a product that's actually going to benefit society and people that, really need your products to help their quality of life, if not extend their life. I mean, I think
Yeah.
just knowing that you're doing good in the world is something that, is driven me to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also challenging, and I like to be challenged. I mean,
Yeah.
developing drugs is not an easy game to play.
Yeah.
So, and at least with me, I was lucky to have a really good team around me. And so I really enjoyed working with, a lot of bright scientists, PhD level, master level scientists that understand the science. And since I was, my education was science, I do have a passion for the science.
Yeah, Todd, you've also even outside of the biotech industry throughout your career, you've had some pretty big fights where you've had to legally defend some patents. I'm sure that was both tenuous and frustrating, but also exciting because you've had some big victories. What have been? Can you share some of those experiences?
Being part of a family office, we looked at a lot of different companies that were in different areas, from retail to consumer electronics, and then in the biotech space also.
And pet food.
And pet food, yeah, that was
Yeah.
retail. I mean, I put that as retail because we're in Walmart and Costco and PetSmart and stuff like that. We took that company public in 2017. Some of the big battles were against Mars Inc. And we had 3 patent litigation suits pending against Mars Inc. at one point, and won a jury verdict in the Eastern District of Texas against them, canceling all their claims and finding that we didn't infringe. That was a big victory. I think the other one is in the consumer electronics space, where we purchased a patent portfolio out of receivership that was a direct competitor to GoPro. And I developed a patent portfolio that was pretty critical to their technology. And we got those issued and got into litigation against GoPro. And it was an 8-year fight. They stuck us in an IPR, in a parties review proceeding, which we won. Then they appealed it to the Federal Circuit, and it got remanded down to the Patent Review Board. And we won again, and then it went to the district court. And so it's still pending as of right now. But it's been kind of an exciting ride along the way. We ended up divesting that company to a large VC group out of Boston, and had a really nice 8-figure return on just pretty much the patent portfolio. So
isn't that interesting, that
the value of the patents?
Yeah, and that could be a really good segue into kind of the concluding question that I have today, Todd, is that, in a previous segment, I talked a little bit about the difference between a biotech company and a pharmaceutical company, right? And the biotech companies we're the small guys doing the hard work, the innovation, the early stage, the risky stuff. But we're also the guys that are filing patents. And these patents, I think, following that last example, the consumer electronics example, 8 to 10 years worth of litigation over a patent, right? I think that underscores the importance of getting strong patents, but also it becomes one of the exit strategies for biotech. If your family office that you were a part of actually purchased nothing more than a patent portfolio and then ended up selling the patent portfolio for a very significant return, it's sort of a similar play in the biotech industry. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think it's actually even more important in the biotech industry, to tell you the truth. I mean, I've seen reports where up to 80% of your revenues come from your patents in the pharmaceutical industry. Of course,
very interesting.
Yeah, the distinction between large pharmaceutical companies and biotech companies is large pharma have deep pockets, and so they have to worry about where and when they're filing their patents as much as a smaller company that has limited resources. And so you got to be a lot more strategic about where you're filing, always thinking about that exit and what your exit is. And so, there's certain jurisdictions. So US, Europe, and Japan make up roughly about 84 to 85% of the pharmaceutical market. So of course you always got to go into those three. And then, considerations go into China and India. Typically the BRIC countries are another ones that you kind of looked at just because they're the emerging markets. But China and India, because they have a lot of manufacturing capabilities, and you can get some bleed over into other jurisdictions if they start making compounds that you want. So large pharma wants to make sure you at least got the majority of the important jurisdictions covered. I mean, I think typically pharmaceutical companies will file, if they're filing their patents anywhere between 50 and 70 countries. I mean, if you're looking at it like the top 8 to 10 jurisdictions, then you're still looking at substantial filing costs, hundreds of thousands of dollars, $200,000 to $250,000 just to file.
Just to file.
Yeah. And so you really got to take into consideration what your capital is that you have and what the capital requirements are going to be on a go-forward basis.
Yeah. Well, Todd, this has been great. Thank you very much for participating in our CancerVAX CEO chat. You've helped me a lot, and I think that our audience who sees this will have a better understanding of the importance of intellectual property in the biotech space. Thanks again for participating.
Yeah, it's been great. Good to see you.